with a verse, and you came to class with an explanation of how the verse tells us how to manage our money, right? Yeah. Good. I want to hear all of them. I want to hear all of them. So, who wants to go first? I saw Grace and Cohen, and your hands went up at like the same time. We'll do Grace first. And I don't need the entire written piece, but I would love to hear like a quick summary so we can get through everyone pretty fast. Again, we're looking for a verse of the Bible and what it tells us about managing our money. Grace, go. Yeah. Good stewardship all the time. Cohen, what was yours?
Mine was Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. Uh, Basically, don't be hasty, and um, that like being diligent leads to abundance, and to have a plan. Uh, don't just like willy nilly go about things, but yeah.
Don't be hasty and plan your finances. Yeah. Who's next?
I can go next.
Melina and then Nathan.
I picked Hebrews 11:4. Thank you, Nathan Casey. It says, "By trusting, Abel offered a greater sacrifice than Cain. Because of this, he was attested as righteousness." The word there means a more godly sacrifice, and so it emphasizes that God accepted Abel's offering more than Cain's because Abel's was more perfect, and that reflects on how we treat our resources when we offer to God. And practically, are we really living our lives realizing how serious it is, because it was literally the first murder in the Bible over the resources that God accepted and the heart that they were presented with.
Okay. So how would you relate it to money specifically?
Tithing, but also the heart with which you're tithing and the purpose with which you're tithing and the reasoning and the amount and the way and where you're tithing. All of it.
Offer it back to God with a right heart. Does that sound good? Nathan?
Mine is, I'm going to read the verse, but then I'm going to read the verse after it so you understand the context. It says, "Know well the condition of your flocks, and pay attention to your herds, for riches are not forever, nor does a crown endure to all generations." It's Proverbs 27:23. Anyway, my thought is it's just know well what's going on in your finances. You know, like it's like there's stewarding your money well, but that also does take knowing what's happening. Because like me, I kind of just like get the paycheck, save half, pay bills with the rest, and then save the rest or use it. You know.
Sure. Keep track of it, right?
For me, it's like, okay, I've done like an actual finances for the year one time. I was like, I came out positive. Cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, yo, actually, what do I have? What's
Know
going on?
actually what's going on. Keep track of it.
Correct.
Nice. Who else?
Hebrews 13:5. Keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have, for he has said, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." Be content, and we should love God, not money.
Yeah. Be content.
He's with us even when we have little or abundance.
Love God, not money. Cool. Who else? Gunkel. And then Riley.
Deuteronomy 14:22, which is, "You shall surely tithe all the produce from what you sow, which comes out of the field every year." Basically prioritizing giving instead of spending.
Yeah. Give instead of spend. Offer back to God with the right heart. I'm going to say give. And I like how you said prioritize giving. In fact, I'm going to erase give and I'm going to say prioritize giving. Love it. Riley.
Proverbs 22:29. Seest thou a man diligent in his business? He shall stand before kings. He shall not stand before mean men. And I remember Mark talking about it and us having a little bit of a discussion. And yeah, it's just a really good verse. And I want to become a person like that is excellent in whatever work they do.
So, how does it relate to money specifically?
I guess when it comes to acquiring it, be efficient at it.
I like how you use the word excellent. How about use it excellently? If you use your money excellently, it can get you in the positions where you're standing before. Yeah, I like it. Who else? Where's our other ones? Yeah, Audrey. And then over here to Nathan.
Proverbs 10:5. He who gathers in summer is a fruited son, but he who sleeps in harvest is a son who brings shame. I kind of took this as income is a good thing. Like making and creating income is honorable and not is shameful.
Income is not shameful. Cool. Nathan.
Proverbs 17:1. Better is a dry morsel with quiet than a house full of feasting with strife.
Okay.
And how it's like money isn't the most important.
Money is not the most important. I don't think I have that written down yet, so I will say not the most important. Haven't heard anything from our middle two tables. Andy.
The debtor is slave to the lender, Proverbs 22:7.
So how does it relate?
Well, we're supposed to be slaves to Christ, not slaves. So I would say debt's bad. Debt's bad.
Debt is bad. I'm going to do a little asterisk there. I'll say it's bad if used incorrectly. That's my personal take on it. But debt, it does put you enslaved to other people. Be very, very, very careful with it. We'll talk about that later. All right. Anybody from the middle four?
I mean, I did Proverbs 21:5. The same one that Cohen did. Basically the same thing he said.
Cool. Anybody else? Andy.
Diversify, Ecclesiastes 11:1.
Tell me about it.
He says, cast your bread on many waters. He says, give a portion just 8 or maybe 9. You don't know when disaster is going to strike. And casting the bread on the waters is not actually, he's talking about if you're going to be shipping product, diversify. Because if something happens and you're only sending your product to one source and that source dries up, then you're messed up. But if you have multiple sources, or so you're diversifying your business and you're putting portions in different places in case something. So it just says, don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's basically what Psalm is saying.
Diversify. We've been doing this for 12 minutes. And we have a lot of things on the board, and not even everybody has shared yet. What does the Bible have to say about money? Jalen? Okay, go.
Proverbs 3:9-10. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine. I guess I just said that, like when you honor the Lord with what you have, then you'll have plenty of it. But then I also kind of see it as like if you be humble, like I don't know. I just saw it as also just being humble with what you got.
Be humble and honor God with it. Cool. Thank you. Jeremiah.
I have a verse and then I wrote a poem. Do you mind if I read it?
Sure.
Okay. Luke 16:9-10. I'll just read verse 10 because 9 is kind of confusing. It says, one who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. And like with that, I just wrote, like, be faithful with what you This life holds all potential to have our highest return if we learn to be faithful and be content and learn.
I love it. Nice. Be honest. Be honest with your finances. What does the Bible have to say about finances, Alex? And how do you relate that to money? Yeah, be careful with it. Don't waste it. The Bible has a lot to say about money. That's the answer to my question. The Bible has a ton. And we've only scratched the surface of what the Bible has to say about money. Why does the Bible have so much to say about money? Yeah, it's not rocket science. It's because money is kind of a big deal. How much of your life and my life revolve around money? Pretty much all of it. Pretty much all of it. It has a major impact on almost every aspect of our lives. And the Bible has a lot to say about it because we care a lot about it. We want to have happy and successful and healthy lives. And because of that, we want to have money and we want to use it well. And the Bible has a lot of instructions and a lot of guidelines and a lot of guidance and a lot of ideas on how to use money well. This is just the absolute surface of it. And we'll dive into a little bit of this here. How many of you feel like you know how to use your money super well? How many of you feel like you know the basics, but you want to know more about like the finer ends of it? How many of you are like, I really don't even know where to start, and I just need to learn the base like from ground zero? Nice. I think it's one of those things where, I mean, you start to scratch the surface on money, and it's like it never ends. There's so many different ideas about how to use money and how to make money and all this stuff. It's like you start to pull at that string, and it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. Because it's so pervasive and because it affects so many elements of our lives, I think it's a good thing to be in that middle position of like always wanting to learn more and always wanting to get better at it. So long as we don't turn money into our God, right? I mean, when you look at these biblical values about money, it's pretty clear that we are not supposed to make money our God. And we all know this, right? The Bible is super clear on that. Let's start at the basics. What is this? I'm dropping my money.
Well, down there, that would be another 20. That would be 40 in total.
What is it actually?
It's a piece of paper.
Yeah.
It's a special piece of paper that we're not.
Well, what happened if I borrowed someone's lighter and just like lit this thing on fire? Yeah. This is a piece of paper. Written on it, it says the United States of America, and it says $20. It has Andrew Jackson's face on it. That's who it is. But what is this actually? This is what I say it is.
Representative of $20 gold, but now it's not. Yes, I know, saddening. You should really go back to the gold standard. Pretty much faith.
That's kind of a good answer there, Jack.
The more and more that I hear from people who are wise with their money, the more and more it seems to just come back to this basic concept. Like this in and of itself is a piece of paper. It's worth $20. $20 we can trade for all kinds of things. We trade a lot of things to get this, and then we trade it for other things. At the end of the day, this sitting in my pocket, it's been in my wallet for probably 3 months. Is this worth anything sitting in my pocket? No. No. This is simply a conduit. Money is a way to get somewhere else. What is the end? What does it get you? What's that? Happiness. What else? What'd you say?
Depends on what you're spending it on.
Sure.
It could be food, it could be
It could be food, it could be other things.
it could be childcare.
When you look at the Bible, all those things that we had on the other side of the board, I think there are three major ends that we can really focus on. There's probably more if you really think about it, but the three that we'll cover tonight, number one of the major ends of money, what it actually gets, is security for your life and your family's life. And the Bible's pretty clear about that. A lot of those verses that you guys read were not, very few of them said making money is bad. It said if you idolize money, it's bad. But we read that verse this morning, like work hard and become, I think it was a king, be lazy and become a slave. There are lots and lots of Bible verses about providing for the people who are dependent on you and stewarding your gifts well, including your gifts of money. So one of the ends is provision and security. Another end, what did I write down? How did I word it? So many of your verses talked about one of the major ends of money is the ability to give it generously, to exercise the gift of giving generously. And the third end it's a means towards stewardship. It's a means towards stewardship. I think we all kind of get the idea that money is just means to an end, but I want to just wait there for a second. Because I think even though we know it in our head, it doesn't always mean that we actually act it out in person. The Bible says that the love of money is the root of all, is it the root of all evil? Is that what that verse actually says? Yeah. Yeah. And what you often notice is that people will look at the amount of money that they have, the amount of dollar bills they have in their pocket, and they say, whoa, that amount in my pocket makes me feel really, really good. But what is that amount doing in your pocket? What is that amount doing in your bank account?
Nothing.
What is that amount doing sitting in your like, I don't know, whatever, your fund, your whatever. If it's earning interest is good, but in general, like money in and of itself is only a means to an end. And the Bible is very clear about what those ends are. So let's go through these a little bit and let's talk about what they are. I think there's some very basic money principles that we can learn from here. Some of them are things you guys are going to have heard before, and some of them hopefully are new and helpful to you. And we'll try to have something here for all three of those things I asked at the beginning. The people who are brand new, the people who know some and want to know more, and hopefully there's even something for the people who feel like I've got this down. But we'll find out. So let's start off on the first one. Money gives an opportunity for some security in life. Practically, what does this look like? How do you know that you are providing well for your family or those who are depending on you with your money? Yeah. How do you assure that you're actually going to have food on the table and power in the house for days and months and years on end? It means you have to create a budget.
I think like another sign of security is when you can miss like a paycheck or two and still be stable.
Mm-hmm. How many of you guys know how to make a budget?
I know how to do it.
How many of you love making budgets? Most people don't. Some people do. That's great. That's great.
Making them.
I, I don't know. I kind of like it. I like to know where we're at financially. I like to make budgets. Megan hates making budgets because like it's just numbers on a page and it's like super overwhelming. It's like I don't even know where to go from here with all this stuff. So, but making a budget is super important. I mean, you flip back to our Bible verses and what you guys talked about here. Which of these have to do with making a budget? Stewardship. What else? Keeping track of it, using it excellently, making sure you have enough to be able to give generously, making sure that you're honoring God with your money. So, how do you make a budget? There's entire classes that could be taught on this, and some of you guys know this already. So, I'm going to give one thing, and then we're going to move on to other stuff. But the absolute basics. Yeah.
So I guess you would make an estimate of what you're expecting to receive in like a month or maybe 2 weeks. It depends on how you get your checks. And after you figure out how much you're expecting to get from all your different ways of like occurring revenue, you would make a tally of how much you're going to owe at the end of the month or wherever you have bills due.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that you set aside money that's dedicated towards your absolutes. Like, you know, this needs to have finance or like money towards this. And after like the bills are covered, you see how much you want to be putting aside for savings and then extra for just your own enjoyment if you want to.
Yeah, that's basically it. This is the breakdown. And I've thought about this, and honestly, I think it fits pretty good. I was even running numbers in my office the other day to see if it really fits for like all different sides of the pay range. But as you sit down and look at how much money you're actually spending every month, you are pretty well on track if 50% or less of your budget is going to needs, if 30% or less is going to wants, and if a minimum of, I'll say 10 to 20% is going to savings. 50, 30, 20, needs, wants, savings. Yeah.
Well, what happens when my budget says 50% is going to need, 0% is going to want, 0% going to save,
What do you guys say?
is going to tithe? Like, how do you manage that budget?
What do you guys say?
Make more money?
Figure out what really defines a need and what really defines a want.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Like, harmonies are necessary when you have money.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask also along that line because, like Grace said, security is knowing that you'll be fine if you miss a paycheck or two. That's not practical for most people. Like, I was working 3 jobs before I came here, and I could not miss a paycheck.
Yeah. How much does McDonald's pay per hour right now?
17 where I live.
$17 an hour.
McDonald's pays $17 an hour.
In reality, it's probably less.
No, it pays $17 an hour in Anchorage and in Wasilla. I looked it up
So it's
today.
like the basic wage, not including tips.
Yeah.
So that means
They
it
can't
pays
take
more than
tips.
I don't think McDonald's makes tips.
They're not allowed to take
You
tips.
get a little bit of tips. The McDonald's over in Kentucky have a tip jar.
Why are we arguing?
So
Look it up, $17.
McDonald's pays $17 an hour, and every single one of you can get a job at McDonald's today. So this is a good place to start. All right? $17 an hour minimum for McDonald's. And they're always hiring. And the managers pay more, but that's completely separate. I ran a budget on $17 an hour. And the big question that you run into is, well, heck, if I want a house and I want a decent car and I want all this stuff, I can't do it on $17 an hour. But how do you factor in needs, wants, and savings? Well, one of the main principles here, and you guys should write this one down, live within your means. Live within your means. Well, what this means is we have to recognize where you're at with your income, and you have to adjust your needs, wants, and savings accordingly. At $17 an hour, you cannot afford your own apartment. You know what you can afford? A roommate. I gamed it out. Typical rent in Wasilla is $1,500 a month. With a roommate, it's $750. You can afford $750 when you're making $17 an hour because you're bringing in just shy of $3,000 a month. Yeah.
I was
Is that
working
full-time?
for $16 an hour in Anchorage, doing the commute every day, and working extra jobs and making it with an apartment. But it was very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
3 jobs and working my butt off.
Yeah.
I barely made it, but I did.
Yeah.
Just takes, but you can't just on 17. You're right. Yeah, you need extra.
The whole point of this is that a lot of us, we have a lot of things that we think are needs, but they don't necessarily need to be. And there's alternatives. One of my personal recommendations, and this is a very basic personal one, but you don't need a car payment.
No, I don't.
You can buy a car cash. In fact, I think car payments are probably the worst kind that you can get involved with. That's a separate topic. You don't need your own place if you're just starting out and $17 an hour is all you can make. If you really want to buy a house, this is a crazy one. You can be perfectly fine living in a trailer for a while.
Nothing wrong with trailers.
Dude, this is different. Trailers in Juneau are ridiculous with how much they're going up in value right now. But all that to say, live within your means. This means take what you're actually making, set your expectations accordingly, and I see your hand. If you're willing to force your budget to meet the 50-30-20, this will get you to a place where you can eventually get where you want to go. Because how much of this is going into savings? You're putting 20% in savings every month. Your savings account is slowly but surely growing, which will eventually get you where you need to go. So this is doable. It just means you might need to adjust your needs and your wants a little bit. Come on.
What about tithe?
So where would tithe go in this? Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those classic stories you people say all the time. It's, I have no idea how I'm going to pay my tithe because my needs are exceeding my tithe, and yet they pay the tithe anyway, and the needs just kind of get covered. And it, like personal experience, it happens all the time. God just works that stuff out. Yeah, and then yeah.
And this is kind of on the topic, but also not. Like something about this is just coming from me. Pretty much 0 work experience. I've done pretty decently well for myself. But what I'm going to say is, what are you willing to do for work too? 'Cause
Mhm.
that's going to affect your finances a lot. Because if you're like, no, I'm not like more. I'm talking more to the guys. Because like if you're unwilling to go into the trades and you're unwilling to go to college, you're going to make $17 an hour pretty much permanently, and that's not going to change. You're willing to go into the trades, that's an adult job. You're going to make an adult wage. You're going to start out probably 17, maybe 20, maybe 25 if you find a good spot, but you're going to get raises and stuff, and you're going to make a way better living. So it's picking a job, even if you don't like it, for the resource, like that should be a factor, not like, oh, what job do I want? Oh, it doesn't matter. It's like, get a job and do it.
Yeah.
Work isn't supposed to be fun, in my opinion. Work is work. If it's fun, that's just an accident.
Yeah.
It's an accident.
I think there's a lot of people who would definitely encourage you to find the job that you enjoy, because
I mean,
otherwise you're going to
work
get
a job
burnt
you
out.
hate, but don't be like,
But-
I need to work my passion, because it's like, okay, let's be realistic. Look at the economy.
Sometimes you just got to make money.
You gotta make money.
Grace.
So,
Okay, so I have a comment about living within your means.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't realize just how much they're spending on extra stuff, like subscriptions or coffee is a
Mhm.
big one. Like my teacher when I was in high school mentioned this, that people will get like a coffee every morning from like their favorite place, and those coffees are often pretty pricey.
Yeah.
And if you tally how much, this is so respectful. If you tally how much you're spending on those coffees, like just in a month, because some people get more than one a day, it's actually a pretty significant number.
yeah, that's what
women
we're
shouldn't
saying.
be preaching in church.
No, I'm just joking.
The one person that can't have.
Yeah.
Convicting praises.
Goes back to evaluating what your wants are versus your needs. So 50-30-20 makes sense? Makes sense. I'll throw a couple other numbers out there just so you guys can write them down and think about it. Right now, we're not making money because we're at Bible school. Otherwise, we'd actually sit down and like game it out on a budget. This is more just principles that you can write down and look back at later. Ultimate goal, when you're living comfortably, your housing cost should be no more than 1/3 of your budget, 1/3 of your income. There's a caveat you might have heard me say, when you're living comfortably, because the reality is housing costs are going up a lot. And so at $17 an hour, if you get a roommate, you can do it at 1/3. Otherwise, it's going to have to be a little more. But ultimate goal, to live comfortably, housing should be about 1/3, no more than 1/3. And that's whether you're paying a mortgage or paying rent or whatever. It's a good number just to keep in the back of your head. And the last thing I'm going to talk about with the budget, this is a Dave Ramsey one, which I think is really good, is setting up an emergency fund. What do I mean when I say emergency fund?
It's 3 to 6 months worth of money that you have saved up, where if you lose your job, you can survive on whatever mortgage you have, whatever thing, apartment for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, it's for emergencies. Well, it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. But Jeremiah said something that was pretty profound. He said 3 to 6 months worth. Are you going to be able just to set that aside all at once? Absolutely not. But if you are able to lower your needs and mitigate your wants so you can get 20% in savings every month, you will get there. You will get to a point where your savings account has 3 to 6 months worth of funds in it. And it's really good to have, because medical emergencies happen all the time, and jobs can go kaput. Transmission can go out in your car. Having money set aside for that in an emergency fund is super, super important. And Megan and I have been really strict about this with ourselves. And our emergency fund amount changes based on how much we actually need for 3 or 4 months. You should update that often. But having enough money to be able to last for 3 to 6 months as a goal for yourself, set aside that you don't touch for anything else. And it's hard to leave that aside. If you really want to go on vacation, you're like, well, I got 10, 12, 14 grand sitting there in my emergency fund after saving in it for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Like, that's pretty awesome. Don't touch it. It's for what? Emergencies. And they do happen.
What is emergency enough to where it warrants that?
I think that's really up to you. What I would say is if you lose your job or you have major medical. And other than that, leave it. But that's what I would do. Everybody's a little bit different, so that's really up to you. All right, questions on basic budgeting numbers?
Sorry, I'm asking all the questions, but
Please do.
was this something that you got like a blueprint, or have you just seen in your life that this has worked?
Both. Yeah, I sat down and thought about what's worked for me, and then I looked it up to see if I was way off, and I was actually pretty close, weirdly enough. So the 50, 30, 20 I got off the internet. In my experience, starting out, my savings was closer to 10. And I had to be closer to 10 for a while before I worked my way up in my jobs enough to get it a little bit higher. But yeah.
A little bit nitpicky and say, well, 40% for needs because 10% is tithe.
Yeah. Or tithe is a need, but you could split it up if you want to.
But
Yeah.
you can't use that towards what you would say is a need,
Mhm.
right? Like food and bills.
Yeah, absolutely.
So only 40% of your paycheck is actually going to your bills.
Or you could take 10% out of your wants and give up some of your wants to tithe to God.
Sorry.
All right. One of the ends is to make sure that you have some security and provision for yourself and for your family. And best way to do it is to continually make and keep track of a budget. Simple. We can go into more budgeting, but I want to have time to talk about the other stuff. The second one, I already erased it. You guys have this all written down? Can I erase this? The second one is giving. One of the ends that your money can do is giving. And I want to ask a question, and I want someone to share, because I'm tired of talking, and I want you guys to talk to me. Someone tell me about a time where somebody gave a significant amount of money that really, really blessed you. Like, I'm not talking just like $20 for you to go out. I'm talking like a serious awesome thing. I see 3, 4, lots of hands. Okay, we'll go Grace then Kendall.
So I've had this actually happen quite a few times in my life. One major area that I've had this happen with is missions. I've had people give donations that were easily over $600, just one person, and like I know those people don't have like a lot of extra money, so that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also had like with my medical condition, I could not afford it independently, especially in the beginning when everything was getting figured out. And my mom has given so much money to make sure that I could keep my eyesight. And
Yeah.
that was huge for me.
That is huge. Kendall.
I was gonna say, well, I guess two things. One, my church back at home, I think a lot of, I'm not sure how many people, and I think they just kind of willingly did it, like it wasn't like a thing, they just wanted to, like, gave my parents like money so then they can like get a plane ticket to move back home, so I can go back home over
That's
the
cool.
break because they wanted me to go back home. And then also, just like while I've been up here the entire time, I've been like my parents have just like been putting money into my account just so I could have like a fun time here and not be worried about that.
That's awesome.
Hospital in middle school, there was this family I played basketball with that paid for my mom's plane ticket to come to me. So I was in Phoenix. So they paid for her plane ticket to come to me. And then the second one, we did foster care for a while, and one time a group of foster kids that we took in brought bed bugs with them, and our house got infested with bed bugs, and our church paid for the, I don't know if you've ever had bed bugs, but you have to heat the whole house to like kill them, and like basically, yeah, you just heat up your house really, really hot, and it's like expensive, and my church paid for it.
That's so cool.
Wait, how hot do you have to get the house?
I accidentally left a candle in my room that was about this tall, and it was flattened all the way down into the garage.
It's like
Super hot. There's so many stories. I know there were like 6 other hands that went up, and I would love to hear them all, but I don't want to keep you here all night. Being able to receive the generosity from somebody is an incredibly humbling experience. Like, think about how it makes you feel when somebody that you know cares about you enough to give a significant amount of money to help you do something. Right now, you guys are at a stage of your life where there's a lot of people who pour into you monetarily in a lot of different ways. At some point, as you get older, you're going to have opportunities to become the one who's giving. And some of you probably have already had those opportunities. And it is an incredible blessing to be able to give to meet somebody else's need. And in the last 2 weeks, I've heard 2 or 3 different people described, like pastors describe them this way, or other people describe them. It's like, that guy over there, he has the gift of giving. He has the spiritual gift of generosity. And you think about it, how cool would it be if somebody looked at you or I and said, that person has a spiritual gift of generosity? I had a friend, I have a friend, I say had, he's still a great friend of mine, his name is Paul. That guy has the gift of generosity. He's very much a blue-collar worker. He seems to always make good money and always seems to never have a lot of it because he just, spends money on things. But he will never, ever, ever hesitate to give you whatever you need anytime, even if it means that it puts him out. And there's been more than once where I've seen him give stuff to me or to other people, and then later you look and you're like, dude, like, you haven't filled up your truck with gas in like a week. Like, all of a sudden you're not driving anywhere anymore. He's like, oh yeah, well, I'm waiting for the next paycheck to come in. But dude, you gave this guy like $300 last week. Oh yeah, but he really needed it. Like, when you have people who have the gift of generosity, think about what blessing it has on the world. Money is means to an end, And one of those ends can be to bless others and to help others see the generous heart of Christ. And so, as we think about money, and as we consider the love of money and making money and budgeting money, I always want us to remember that at the end of the day, it's not our money. It's money that God has given us, and He gives it to us to provide for our needs, and He gives it to us to steward well and to grow well. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But He also gives it to us so that we can in turn pass it along and give it to other people in need. And so I don't have a specific list of like tangible things that you should do for giving other than tithe. Of course, 10% is tithe, but 10% is not like a maximum requirement. There's a lot of stories of people who give above and beyond. I would say the Bible commands us to be generous with our money. And so as we consider money and consider budget, the means to an end, number 2 is give. And be happy to give it without expecting anything in return. Andy.
I think just a comment on that too, and giving and tithing kind of go hand in hand, because tithing keeps your attitude right with money, and knowing that, hey, it's God who gives. There's more to life than money. God is providing for me. I trust you. So if you're so strapped that you can't tithe, and you're like, shoot, I want to give to God, I can't, because you're trying to control a situation, and you're saying, I need to control this, and I need to get things under control before I can be generous, and you forget, it's actually the Lord his job is to provide for me, and I'm his kid, and all of these different things. So tithing really is saying, Lord, I trust you, which puts your heart in the right attitude with money. And then generosity is like the antidote to greed. It's the antidote to the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and discontentment and all of that kind of stuff, and being jealous of so-and-so that's got a nicer car, bigger, whatever. So being generous is just not letting your right hand know what your left hand is doing. It's just like, So generosity and tithing are really, really, really important things to practice.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy. I love it. Third one, and the last one we'll talk about today, although I'm sure there's plenty more we could talk about. Money as means to an end. We can think about that through the lens of stewardship. How do we steward the money that God has given us well? When you go back to the parable of the talents, and you see the money that's given to 3 different people, what do the 2 who do well with it, what do they go out and do with it? They invest it. What does the third one do? He buries it. He hoards it. He holds on to it. That's like the $20 that's sitting in my pocket. Is this $20 doing anything for me right now? No. Actually, if you look at how much inflation is going up, this $20 is actually not going to be worth $20. And, I don't know, 6 months from now, it's going to be worth like $18.50 or whatever. Like it's actually getting less and less valuable the longer and longer I hold on to it. So how do you steward your money well? How do you use the money that God has given you well? Here's the other quote that you should write down. The first one is live within your means. The second one is make your money work for you. Make your money work for you. This is a thing that I've just kind of come to learn more and more. The older and older I get, I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert in finances, but one thing that I've just seen over and over and over again is there's 2 different ways to look at making money. And if you want to be in a position where you can give even more generously and provide better for your family. One way is kind of the standard way we look at it. It's the idea that, the hours you work equals the amount of money that you make. That's what we do, right? We go to work, we make $17 an hour at McDonald's. We work so many hours, that's how much money we get. There's a limiting factor here. What's the limiting factor? There's only so many hours in a week that you can work, right? You could be like Jeremiah, where he's working like 3 different jobs and driving back and forth to Anchorage and working like what was your total? Like 14 hours a day or something?
20 hours.
Dude, just like working nonstop, but there's only so many hours in a day that you can work, right? And if the only way that you're looking at money is hours worked equal money made, then at some point, there's like a cap to this. There's only so many hours in a day, and so you can't really earn any more than that. Is that bad? I don't think so. God tells us to work hard for our money and get rich quick schemes that don't always require, working hard for a whole bunch of money. They rarely work. They're usually scams. But what it does mean is if you want to get to a place of an emergency fund faster and more generous giving faster, you need to find a way to take the money that you do have in your savings, the 20%, and you need to find a way to make it work for you. Make more money without you having to put in more hours, if that makes sense. And there's a few basic ways that I have learned to do that, and then there's many, many more out there. The very first one is what Jared said, investment. Whenever I was asking my grandparents and several other adults and pretty much anybody I could ask, like what to do once I started actually making money, every single one of them said, save for retirement, save for retirement, save for retirement, save for retirement. Because so many of them were at the time stuck in positions where like they couldn't stop working. My poor wife's grandparents, they're dairy farmers in upstate New York, and they live in a company house and just don't have a whole lot of life savings. And they're at a point where, her grandpa's almost 80 and he's still working like 30 hours a week to keep the house. Like it's just save for retirement. And so if you're looking for a practical thing that I have found that works very well for investment, you can open up your own retirement account called a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. There's about, several hundred different people that you can get one from. It is an account that you open. It's an account that you put money into, and the company that you put your money in will invest that money for you in stocks or in bonds or whatever else you want them to invest it in. The nice thing is that you don't have to do it yourself. A lot of people are like, dude, I'm going to get rich in the stock market and buy a bunch of stocks on like Robinhood or something on my phone. And some people do really well with it, and most people end up losing a bunch of money on it. The nice thing about a Roth IRA is they have it super diversified and split up, and it's pretty much you just put the money in and don't even touch it. And the one that I have has been consistently like 8 to 12% every year.
Isn't a Roth IRA, how do you take taxes off the top and then you don't pay taxes?
That's another really nice thing about it, yeah. Whenever you go to pull it out, so you can pull out all the money in the Roth IRA once you reach retirement age. You can also pull out some money well before that for certain expenses. You can pull money out to buy your first house with it. You can also pull money out for emergency medical and a couple other things. But yeah, when you pull the money out after retirement age, you do not get taxed on it. And that's not just, you're not taxed on the money that you put in. All of the proceeds, all of the additional that you earn, you're not taxed on it, yeah.
You're also able to buy houses with your IRA money
Mm-hmm.
and then sell them with your IRA money and also rent them through your IRA money.
Yeah.
You can't use that money, but you can, in addition to the interest that you're raising, you can actually do a lot of real estate stuff.
Yeah. You can deduct up to $6,000 a year in your taxes by putting money in a Roth IRA. So that's pretty cool. And at the end of the day, if you are willing to put in, and I'm trying to remember the exact numbers. Is it $100 a month or is it a little more? I don't remember now. It's not a ton. I'll look up the number and tell you. I think it's $2,000 a year. If you put in $2,000 a year, so a little less than $200 a month, by the time that you reach retirement age, you'll have $1 million in there.
Also, retirement start as soon as possible, because that's also the other one.
So investing in something long-term like a Roth IRA is super, super beneficial.
Quick comment on that.
Yeah.
If I put $0 into a retirement because you're like thinking, I don't have any money to put into a Roth IRA. Well, it's better than zero. Anything is going to be better than zero, especially when you get started sooner.
Yeah. When I was starting off and trying my best to do 20% in savings, I ended up putting about $100 a month in a Roth IRA. That's about all I could afford, and I ended up doing that for like years and years. And I was really impressed at how much it grew at just $100 a month. So work it into your savings plan. I think it's really beneficial for the future. What do you do with debt? Because pretty much any type, not any, many, I'll say many types of investments, I'm thinking in particular like real estate investments or those types of things. It's not like if we're starting off at McDonald's making $17 an hour that we can just all of a sudden have like, you know, $300K and buy a piece of property and turn it into a rental and like make more money. Like you got to start somewhere. What do you do with debt? And how do you steward your money well when you're considering debt? One option is to not get it at all. What else?
If debt makes you money, sometimes it's a wise investment.
Can be.
But if it doesn't, it can be difficult.
Yeah. How many of you, well, maybe I'll just say it this way. There's a few things that I think debt is worth getting. There's many things that I don't think it's worth. If you think about money as means to an end, what is debt? Debt is money that you had to pay back to somebody else, right? Yeah. It still is means to an end, but you got to factor in what that end looks like. The end looks like you got to pay back the debt along with whatever the end is. When I was thinking about debt, I had zero debt when I graduated high school, and I had zero money in my account, pretty much. And I was looking at college, and I was like, well, this is what I really want to do. I want to, at the time, I was kind of thinking about being a high school teacher. I did eventually end up doing that. And I basically had to sit down and be like, all right, look, this is how much debt it's going to take me in order to go to school. And this is how much I'm going to make at the end with the degree I have. And am I making enough to be able to pay back the debt and make it worth it? And I decided, yeah, I am. And so I took out student loans and I went to school and I did a bunch of other jobs and then eventually became a teacher. And I paid all my student loans for like 10, 12 years. I just paid them off when I sold my house in Juneau last year. But I wouldn't have been able to do that job without it. There's no way I would not have been able to afford it. And so in that sense, for me, it was worth it. The means to an end, the end was I was making a job that was making enough money to service that debt, make it work. There's some things that I think are pretty bad debt. Number one, and this is my opinion, some people can argue with me, but credit card debt. Credit card debt is terrible. The interest rate is awful, and never, ever, ever carry credit card debt. Yeah.
Does anyone here have debt, does that make sense?
Like North Star put them in debt for their tuition? Yeah. No, because we don't do any loans for student tuition. Another one is car payments. You do not need to take out a loan to buy a car. The car payments are pretty bad debt because the cars depreciate so much. Yeah.
Are you going to touch on credit cards other than carrying credit card debt?
What do you want to talk about with it?
There are ways to use them wisely to build your credit score and to pay them off.
Yeah.
And not incur it's a tool. If you use it right, it's actually very good.
Yeah. It helps when you're trying to qualify for a mortgage, a home loan.
Is there a way to do a home loan without a credit score?
Yeah, you have to have a lot of money in your account. Yeah. That's what I got a credit card for, was to build my credit score. And you can definitely do it, but credit cards get out of hand pretty fast. The worst part about them, in my opinion, is that, I see your hand, give me just 1 second. The worst part about them, in my opinion, is that when you swipe the card, the money doesn't come out of your account. And it goes on the credit card, but if you're looking at your bank account, it's like, oh, dude, I got like $3,000 in my bank account. This is sweet. I'm good for this month. And then all of a sudden you get your credit card bill, and it's like, how in the world did I swipe $4,000 on my credit card? And where am I going to get that extra $1,000 to pay it? And so that's the part that is scary. Literally, that happened to me this last month. I was like, and I basically have not used my credit card for anything, but I had to use it for the doctor's office. I used it for a couple other things. And it's like, I'm pretty sure I only swiped my card like 5 times this month. I got my bill and it was like over $2,000. And I was like, but I don't have $2,000 in my checking account right now. Where did that come from? It comes so fast. And that's why it's scary, because if you can't pay it off, then you're stuck with the interest and then it snowballs. So if you're going to use a credit card in order to build your credit score, it's a good tool for that, but you got to be super, super careful with it. So that's why generally I say it's bad debt, unless, again, means to an end. You're using it for a very specific purpose. Caleb? Yeah, treat it like a debit card. Yeah.
If you don't have a budget, that's the challenge. Like a credit card without a budget is just, it's a fact you will spend more money on a credit card than you spend handing over cash.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a fact that if you're using a credit card on a regular basis or you're using cash, there's this emotional letting go. Like you're literally seeing your wallet go empty, but you don't see that with a credit card. And so if you don't have a budget, then a credit card is pretty
Yeah.
scary.
The last thing I want to hit on real quick is, like, where do you go from there? Because what we've talked about are fairly simple principles that a lot of you guys know. What people really want to know is, like, okay, how do I get rich? Like, how do I use my money and get rich? Well, it's 8 o'clock and we're done with class, so I'm just kidding.
How convenient.
When I look at the people that I've personally crossed paths with that do seriously well financially, there are very few common denominators except for a few basic ones. Because, like, you can look at one guy, Sean Cantola, a guy I know in Juneau, who is a property developer and is very good at what he does developing property. He uses real estate to do very well with his money. There's another guy that I know that is really good with the stock market. His name is Sandon Fisher, and he did a ton of research on puts and calls and options trading, and he is like, very nice supplement to his monthly income based off of clicking a few buttons on the screen in the early morning when he gets up. And so when you look at those two guys, it's like two very different ways of, like, building a lot of money. And there's no way that we can just sit here in class and be like, all right, do this one thing and you're going to get rich. But I'll tell you what they both have in common. Both of these guys took a lot of time to research and learn their specialty. Jeff Pernsteiner was talking about this when he was here the first time. He said, what is it, 12 books or 24 books? He was talking to you about this, Cohen. 20. Read 20 books on the subject that you want to become a master in. And I think there's a lot to that. For me, personally, the stocks and the stock market, very hard for me to understand. I've never been super, super great at understanding intangibles. Like algebra, very hard for me. Geometry's tangible. Geometry I got. But the intangibles are hard. For me, looking at real estate as an investment was a lot easier for me personally to grasp. And so I started reading as much as I could about it, just online and talking to people. And then I ended up getting a job as a real estate agent. I studied up and I took the test and I passed and I sold real estate for 2 years on the side. And that taught me a lot about real estate investment. And I was able to use the things that we learned from that and the things that we learned from building construction for a whole bunch of years. And Dad and I were able to invest some money and build a spec house in Juneau, and it's worked out really well for both of us. But it didn't just happen because one day we were like, dude, I'm going to buy a piece of property and build a house, and here we go. I think there's a lot to picking something and really taking some time to invest in reading and learning about it, and also invest in working in it. Sandon, my friend who did the stock market, he's a lawyer, and he worked with a lot of people in financial-based law, so he knows the stuff about that. Sean is a full-time real estate appraiser, so he knows what to look at with his job for how to make money and how to do that. There's people who do this with starting businesses. There's people who do this with so many other things. But with whatever it is that you think, dude, I think I can get this. I think I can understand this. The one common denominator is that they take a lot of time and they try to get a job in the industry so they can learn it even better. So that's a recommendation to you. If there's something that you're like, I kind of have a knack for this, or I'm really interested in this, or there's a lot of people in my life that I see doing really well with this, take some time and invest in learning about it. Because if you can take the money in your savings and make it work for you through your investment opportunities, it'll give you a lot more opportunity to be able to be generous with it and to build a better budget to support your family. You guys have any other suggestions on how best to learn alternative ways to invest or make additional money? Dad, Andy?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Via an illustration.
Yeah.
And I probably told this to some of you guys. It's, again, getting started early is really important because it takes time for your assets or your investments to start paying off. But an asset will put money in your pocket even if you lose your job, and a liability will take money out of your pocket no matter what you know what I mean? So your car will always take money out of your pocket. Food and rent will always take money out of your pocket. But let's just say I'm 20 years old and I build a little cabin. I just work really hard late at night and I build a little cabin and I rent it out for $1,000 a month. Well, it'll take a couple years, but then my cabin's going to get paid off, right? Once that cabin is paid off, that is making me $1,000 a month. So if I could take that and now I'm $1,000 a month richer, or I could put that $1,000 and buy another cabin, build another cabin. Now I have two cabins making me $2,000 a month. Well, after 4 cabins, I'm getting a $4,000 a month a check, and my cabins are paid off, which means if my budget says I can live on $4,000 a month, I'm financially free. Does that make sense? If I can live on $4,000 a month and I invest in 4 cabins and those cabins are making $4,000 a month, I can actually stop working and that will pay for but I don't stop working. So now my money is working for me, right? But so it's just easier to start that when you're young. Start thinking about my money goes to my bills or my liabilities, and that seems like just that's the rat race that everybody's running, is like my money goes to my liabilities, my money goes to my liabilities. But if you can take some of that money and put it into an asset so that your asset starts paying off your basic needs, then you can actually stop working once your assets start, I don't know if that makes sense, starts covering all of your basic needs. Not that you stop working, but that's when you become free.
Yeah.
You can work, you can travel, you can work a second job, you can be a bigger blessing, you can do more things that way. And it's just something that I thought about for 20-some years and never did anything about it, and now I'm kicking myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 quick things. One, if you're working for wages, like Luke said, you're limited by the number of hours in a day. You can only make so much money. Sales is a way to dodge that bullet.
That's true.
So if you're in sales, you're not limited by the hours per day. If you can sell 1,000 units or 50,000 units, you can just make more money. Second thing, somebody that was very well off in real estate, he was a car mechanic, but he did what Andy just described. He put money into rentals and paid those off, and bought more rentals and paid those off. And he was retired, as you know, and his saying was, if you're too dumb to make money any other way, real estate, you don't have to be smart to make money in real estate. Just write it out for the long haul.
Yeah. Cameron, what were you going to say?
Oh, just a gamble.
Don't do that. Terrible idea.
Bitcoin. That's how you get rich fast.
Terrible idea. So let's finish off with this. A little while ago, when I asked what the common denominator was between the different people who are making money, somebody over on this side of the room, might have been Flynn, said prayer. Yeah. I think prayer is probably the most important thing that you can do when you consider money. When I say prayer, I'm not necessarily saying prayer for more money. I'm asking, or I'm saying prayer for wisdom and how to use what God's given you well. Andy's talking about assets. Prayer for how to use the assets God has given you well. Prayer for how to be generous with what you have. Prayer with how to properly evaluate what job to get so that you know how to use the money from that job in order to get where you want to go. Prayer with how to invest the money that God has given you and where to invest it. There's so much the Bible says about finances. It only makes sense that we should be praying about how to do those things well. So that's kind of what I want to leave you with is there's just some basic financial principles that I hope if you didn't have them before, you have them now. And then the more advanced things like how to make your money work for you and invest and put into assets. I mean, there's lots more that I can say about ideas about how to do that. You're welcome to come talk to me afterwards, and I can try to help. I'm not an expert, but I can try. Mark, my dad, Andy, Tracy, Melody, all these guys they've been doing finances for a while, and they're very wise. So please ask them those questions too. But for the purpose of our class, as we wrap up, when you're looking at finances from a biblical perspective, I think the things that you guys found in the Bible are really good principles to hold on to. And again, money is not worth really anything by itself. It's means to an end. And if that end is providing well for your family, and if the end is being generous to others, and if the end is stewarding well the resources God has given you, then I think you're going to be blessed financially. I don't mean blessed like you're all going to be millionaires, but I think God will bless each of you with what you need. And the Bible does say that. So let's pray. God, thank you for these young adults and for all the different pathways that they're on. There are going to be people in this room, God, who are incredibly wealthy, and there's going to be people in this room who maybe don't have as much. But I pray that for every single one of us, that you would give us the wisdom to know how to use the money you do give us well. And I pray that some of these things would just become applicable to these folks as they move on from North Star and go on to other things. That they would become applicable as they're starting to make money again, as they're thinking about how to budget it and how to use it well. Pray that they'd be applicable as they give to their church and see needs in other people around them that just need, that you would give them wisdom on how to apply these principles so they can be generous with what they have. Pray you give them discernment on what are needs versus what are wants, and how to mitigate needs and wants in order to be able to save and grow into better position financially in the future. But I guess above all, I just ask that you protect each and every one of them from idolizing money. I just pray that you would give us all the hearts that money is not an idol, it's a means to an end. And we want that end to be to glorify you and to bless others as much as we can, as to provide for our families, and just to do the things that you've commanded us to do with it. In Jesus' name, amen.